So, hey, we're on to our sixth tool, Oikos Prayer, which this was a new one to me. I got into this learning to do missionary pathway stuff and learning to pray missionally. And so basically what oikos is oikos is like a Greek word for community, family. It's those sphere of influence. And so it's just a very visual way of praying where you're kind of drawing it out. And so I always teach people, and like I said, there's not a right or wrong way, but I always teach people, I start with a circle with myself or my family in the center, and then I branch off and I'll put different spheres of influence or different communities that I have. So like when I did this in New Jersey, I had my CrossFit community, I had the people up and down the street from me, and then I had just people that were connected in other relationship. And so that's kind of how I would do it. And then I always do it where you could obviously do it where you pray for anybody. I always do it as a missional prayer. So I'm always writing off names of people that I don't know where they're at spiritually, or they might be disconnected. And so I'll use it as like a missional form of prayer and write those names out. And I think one cool thing is it just opens my eyes to see just the number of people God's already surrounded me with that I could be missional with, that I can share the gospel. So anyways, that's kind of my initial overview of what that is. What's your experience been with this?
Yeah, I think it's a powerful prayer. And as you were sharing on it, I realized that I need to be more intentional with the further on my web goes, like praying for them. So this is a prayer that my family does. Like after me and my wife have our separate time, we'll bring in our daughter and ourselves, we'll do this prayer. So of course, for me personally, starting with my wife, her family, like just her web, her friends and all that, my daughter, her school, her teachers and all that web, and myself. But I've found it to be, as you were talking, it's like, how can I be more intentional praying for them? Because it's almost been as though when I'm praying for those individuals in the web, it's in regards to, I'll just say how it is, God, I can't think of the right word, how they impact me, blessing me, or making sure, like example, pray, let my boss be great to me, let me have favor with my colleagues, or things like that. Instead of really taking that attention away from how they impact me, but how God can have an influence in their life, right? And I think that is a process for me that I plan on working on as I was reading this on you. But I think it's really intentional for us to pray because we're in community. With all these individuals, and the reason why we're in community, it's not just to stand by, but to actually figure out how those relationships are formed, built, and how God has an influence in everybody's life. So I think it's a powerful one that I need to keep working on.
Well, yeah, and I feel like too that's one I need to work on. I've had seasons where I have it saved in my Bible, and then when you pull it out, and it's like any prayer tool. It's like, I know the concept, but it's only as good as how often I'm going to use it. But one of the cool things about it, and I heard this from an old church planter who like did church planting like door-to-door style. Like it was cool. He said, before you talk to people about God, talk to God about people. And from a prayer, from an Oikos prayer standpoint, that just reminded me of the reality that like I can pray over these names and God knows these people intimately. So sometimes you could just be like, bless their marriage. What do they need? Like, open my eyes to see how I can be a good neighbor. Like you can pray for them knowing that God knows them more intimately than we do. And then too, if that's your missional sphere, the people that you want to share the gospel with in relational ways, the people those as you are going people, like the people that are in your as you're going kind of sphere, I would say it gives you a really tangible way to be in prayer for them, which is really cool.
I love it. And it's you keep going on. I'm like, it brings to remindance like these are tools, right? And when I'm saying these are tools, because I started thinking, wait, Cyril, there are times and places that actually this is the mode you're operating. Right? This is not the mode you're operating, Cyril, when you're having your early morning devotions. But when you're like out in the community, when you're at a church, when you're prayer walking, or when you are in a neighborhood and you're trying to pray for that neighborhood, and now you start praying around those different spheres of your groups that you're in. But it's me thinking of like, how does these tools work, and what, for me personally, when is the best place for me to put this in cadence? And I find that this tool has really been instrumental for me as a growth when I'm in in the field. In the field, meaning out there in my community, neighborhood, like wherever I'm out working and playing, like that's when I really see this specifically tool being used most in my prayer life. And yeah, I just need to do it more and more, but I see that most in usage at that time.
Oh yeah, and these prayer tool conversations, I'm like, oh, this is one I need to dig into more. Oh, this is one that's been really fruitful lately. I think too, the other cool thing that we don't often think about with this one, this is a really great corporate way of praying. And we don't think about that, but like I've used it, and the way I found this out was I was working with a group of church planners that were also seminary students. And at the time when they're in seminary, they've got their seminary community. They're probably working on campus, and then they've got like a fieldwork church. So I'm showing them my prayer map of New Jersey, where I've got tons of friends disconnected from faith that I'm praying for. And I was like, "What that experience like for you?" They're like, "It stunk." And I'm like, "Why? What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, we don't get out and see a lot of people disconnected from faith." So it was kind of shaming. They felt like at first, and it gave me this idea of like, okay, well, what does it look like if you put the maps together? And so then I was going and doing this like missional training in Vancouver, Canada. And so I was stepping into that training. There's about 40 some people there. And so I had them break out into tables. And I made their Oikos map a group map. So they took their map together and they put the organization they were connected with together, the church, all that kind of stuff. And then they started drawing their individual Oikos maps off that. What's really cool is when you do it like that, all of a sudden you get a look into just how many people God's surrounded your group with, or how many people that just your church is currently surrounded with as you go. So like if you've got a life group and you're doing prayer stuff, try this together as a group. Get one of those big sticky sheets and like, open it up and have everybody draw off on their own personal Oikos map. And then all of a sudden somebody's not like, well, I only know like 2 or 3 people disconnected from faith. You start to see, man, a group of just a few people could have 100+ people they're surrounded with that are disconnected in faith. And when you see that on a map, not only that, you get to individually pray together as a group for those people. It's really cool. And so it is not just a personal thing. You can do it as a community. You can do it as a family. You could post it up on your refrigerator if you've got some kids, and just post it up there and be like, hey, these are the people we're in prayer for. You can use just first names. That makes it even more, a little bit anonymous, know. But yeah, so that's something I would encourage you all with this tool.
And I was going to say, like, just even sharing a testimony, like, this is a great way. Honestly, I remember, was it maybe a month ago or so? I can't quite remember. We had a night of prayer at our house, and in kind of drawing out our community and who we're like all connected to. One lady that was there at the prayer said, "Oh, I want to pray for Matthew." And Matthew wasn't in our group. So Matthew is like a extended person that we know. And it was like, okay, Matthew needs to go back to church. He's called to be doing ministry, right? And she was praying for Matthew to just be drawn to church. Next day, I meet Matthew, and I'm just telling him what this lady was saying. And it was like, that is what I've been pressing on me. Wow. And now Matthew has plugged into a church, not at Faith, but into another church.
That's cool.
And it's going to church. So just like the power, showing the power of prayer, but actually this model of how really there's certain peoples in the life that maybe somebody else would have a word from God or just wants to pray for them. And you can just the connectivity around everything. So I think it's powerful. Yeah.
Well, I love this tool. And this is just another great, in fact, when we put together this prayer journal, you're kind of wondering, hey, why are some of these things blank? Well, here on the day of Oikos Prayer, you got a blank page here that you could use to just create your own Oikos map right in here. And so what I would say is, like any of these prayer tools, the only way to really experience it is to try it. Create like 10, 20 minutes to just sit down and give this one a shot. And maybe it's something you use, maybe it's something you rip out, stick in your Bible, or maybe it's something that you're like, hey, that was cool. Glad I tried it. Don't know if I get as much fruit out of that. That's why there's multiple tools. So this is the first day you're seeing these tools. Check out faithoakville.org/prayer resources. We have 10 prayer tools you can try to help you pray. And then we've also got links to the prayer journal, other resources we have for prayer that'll really help you dig into prayer. So I'm looking forward now to walking into our next day together.